What happened to the Mountaineers tonight in Morgantown as they fall to the Arizona Wildcats 75-56? It just was not their night. That's all I can say. Thank you for tuning into this live edition of Couz's Corner. This ain't Couz's Corner. This is Hoops from the Hills. I knew I was going to do that eventually. Thank you guys for tuning in to Hoops from the Hills. I'm this live post-game show. If you're not catching it live, no big deal. I hope you enjoy the show. I'm going to go over some stats from the game, talk about what happened to the Mountaineers tonight in this game. What did Arizona do that caused them problems? And just, talk about the impact of injuries and other things. So thank you for tuning into the show. If you're watching on X over at the Couz's Corner X channel, I recommend that you come over to the Hoops from the Hills YouTube channel later. Check out my previous shows and previous live streams that I've done. And then also, if you don't care, go to my Hoops from the Hills Twitter account. It's kind of new. I'm still trying to grow it. It's Hoops. It's at Hoops_Hills 304. It's on the screen right there. Please come and follow me over there. I have been forgetting to advertise that, but it is a thing. So again, WVU falls to 11-3 on the season, 2-1 in Big 12 play. Arizona improves to 9-5 on the season and 3-0 in Big 12 play. And Arizona might just be the best 9-5 basketball team in the country. That's a good basketball team. That is not the same team, or at least they did not look like the same team that West Virginia played back in the Bahamas just, a month ago, whatever it was, a few weeks ago. Looked like two different basketball teams. Want to start off by just giving credit to Arizona. They had to make a tough trip all the way from out west to West Virginia, dealing with bad weather, something that a lot of them may not be accustomed to. Not easy to travel in those conditions. Traveling to Morgantown is not easy anyway. And they came in there, and they were the team with the most energy. They looked like they played harder, had the most focus, and just were the better basketball team overall. So I've got to give hats off to Tommy Lloyd and his squad. They played a really good basketball game in Morgantown and did what they needed to do to win. So congratulations to Arizona. Look, us West Virginia fans, if you had told me West Virginia was going to be sitting here at 11-3 with wins over Gonzaga, Kansas, Arizona, Georgetown, at this point in the season, with this roster and this new staff, this new roster, brand new roster, new staff, I would have told you I would take it any day of the week, and I mean it. I mean it. I would have taken it. And that's where we are. Every team's going to have a bad night. This team could not continue to play the way they were playing night in, night out, I don't think, and keep it up. The energy that this league sucks out of teams, at some point, teams are going to have a bad night. It's just going to happen, especially when you're a team that is dealing with all the injuries West Virginia is. And I know Coach DeVries will not use that as an excuse in the locker room. I know he won't, and they shouldn't. You've got to have the next man up mentality. But looking at this from a fan's perspective, man, they have had to deal with a lot of adversity. DeVries might be out for the season. We don't know that for sure yet, but it's definitely leaning that direction. Daniel, I actually almost started the show with that, man. Credit to Arizona. But, Tucker DeVries likely not coming back this year. He's missed the last, 6-7 games. Jaden Stone, who came into the season expected to be their second leading scorer, maybe third at least, hasn't played a game yet, not even one game. So will he even come back? Will they decide does he decide to take a medical red shirt? Who knows? Monty Hansberry missed a couple games. I'm not sure if he's 100% yet. Now KJ Tenner is hurt. He missed this game after going down with a hard fall to the ground in the last game against Oklahoma State. So just one injury after the other, and Hansberry limps off again tonight after I'm not sure what happened there, but they just keep dealing with adversity week after week after week. And up to tonight, they had been able to overcome it, but not tonight. Now, would it have mattered tonight? I don't know. Again, they just didn't seem to have the amount of energy that Arizona didn't have the focus. They just were not the typical sharp basketball team that we have grown accustomed to seeing each week and each game. It is what it is. It happens. Again, I don't want to jump to too many conclusions over one game. I still think this is a really good basketball team. I still think it's a well-coached basketball team. They can take this game, learn from it, learn what they did wrong, which I may talk some about here in a minute, learn things they can improve on, and hopefully some guys can get healthy. I mean, they need guys to get healthy. Hopefully Tanner can get healthy. I'd love to see DeVries come back, but I don't know that that's happening. I think if you are Coach DeVries and this team, I'm not sure you can. I'm not if both Stone and DeVries both want to take medical retros, but they don't have to, and they can play. Man, I'm not sure. I'm not sure you don't let at least one of those guys come back, because you're going to need them as they go through the stretch of this tough season. I think both of them. Hopefully, both of them don't plan on doing that. That's my fear. But anyway, we should go have a good outlook going into next year if that happens, though, right? But I'm also worried about this year. So anyway, let's go ahead and talk about the stats. Let me go ahead and address a few people in the chat real quick. Daniel Gigax, thank you. Jacob Yoho, Raven Grady, Todd Strickland, a.k.a. Silver 8 Tundra, thank you for joining the show. Jack's son Clark, Kyle Cavalier, Dor Matt, I love that name. Shaggy of WV, thank you, who's also a bouncer, or here on the channel, I call it a bouncer, moderator. Matthew Watkins in the house, Matt Marcus, Tim Haynes, thank you all for joining. Yeah, rebounding was definitely an issue, Raven, for sure. Absolutely an issue, and we'll talk about that here as we pull up the stats, actually. We pull up the ESPN stats for the game, and I'm sure rebounding will be a top topic of discussion. Arizona stats are on the left. West Virginia's are on the right as we go through this. Obviously, you see Arizona outscored West Virginia 39-28 in the first half. It was 36-28 in the second half. So pretty much the same. West Virginia scored 28 both halves. Arizona scored 3 less. So West Virginia's just not a good night. Field goals, Arizona 31-61, 50.8% from the floor. Great night shooting for them. They were 7 of 20 and 35% from 3, and they came into the game not shooting well from 3. So good night for them. West Virginia was 21 of 58 from the floor overall, 36.2%, not good. 8 of 29 from 3, 27.6%. Not a typical West Virginia shooting night. They just could not throw the ball in the ocean tonight. It happens. Same thing happened against Pitt. When I'm telling you, this West Virginia team are going to have nights. Any team that shoots as many threes as they do, they were top 10 in the country, I think, coming in 3-point attempts. Any team who attempts that many threes, you're going to have nights where you don't make them, and it's going to hurt you. And unfortunately, this team, they don't rebound the ball great, so that can when you have a bad shooting night, you can't make up for it with rebounds at times. And I think that's what happened tonight. They ran into a team who out-rebounded them. Free throws, 6 of 10 for Arizona, 6 of 8 for West Virginia. So not a ton of free throw attempts in this game. 60% for Arizona, 75 for West Virginia. Rebounds, 40-31. Got absolutely hammered on the glass, 40-31 overall, 10-8 on the offensive glass, and 30-23 on the defensive glass. One of the biggest things Darren DeVries focuses on is defensive rebounding, and I guarantee you he's not happy with his team's performance tonight. Eduardo Andre didn't have a good night like he had been having the last few weeks. Again, I'm not sure if Amani Hansberry is 100% yet, but he did not have a great night either, rebounding the ball. Assists, 15-11 in favor of Arizona. Steals, 8-7 Arizona. Blocks, 6-4 Arizona. Total turnovers, 8-10. 10's not a ton of turnovers for West Virginia, but they only forced 8. They're a team that forces many more turnovers than that, and they didn't force as many tonight as they had been. Just shows you the defensive intensity to me was not there tonight like it had been in previous games. Fast break points, West Virginia had 12 to Arizona's 9. Points in the paint, Arizona again dominates this category, 36-22. West Virginia committed 10 fouls to Arizona's 7. Largest lead, Arizona led by as many as 19. West Virginia did lead by as many as 3 at one point in the game, but that was really, really early. So I think it was 5-2, actually, if I'm not mistaken. So extremely early. So those are the team stats. Again, what sticks out to me is that Arizona pretty much dominated in just about every statistical category in this game. Except fast break points. They didn't win fast break points. That's pretty much it. They won every category but fast break points. And free throw shooting percentage. That's it. You're not going to win many games shooting 36% from the floor and 27% from three when you shoot 29 shots from three. You're not going to. It's not winning basketball, especially when you only get what I say rebounds, 31 rebounds, and you allow 40. So they've got to even up the rebounding margin there and do a better job getting, team rebounding, as Coach DeVries likes to talk about. Now let's go to the individual stats. Let's talk about Arizona first. I think their players deserve to be talked about here a little bit. Some really good performances. Start off with KJ Lewis. Boy, did he have himself a night. 21 points, 4 assists, 2 steals, a block, 3 rebounds, 2 for 2 from the free throw line, 1 for 3 from 3. Absolutely awesome night off the bench. Caleb Love held to 9 points on the night. But KJ Lewis made up for it coming off the bench. Then you've got to give a hats off to Jaden Bradley, who had a good night as well. 6 of 10 shooting. Also had 5 assists and 4 rebounds. And then I thought that Anthony Del Orso made some really big shots for Arizona tonight. 10 points for him, 2 of 4 from 3. And then can't really, to me, the job that Henry Vesar did down low tonight on Eduardo Andre and Amani Hansberry, I thought was a really, really good. He didn't have a ton of stats, 6 points, did have 7 rebounds, a couple steals, and 3 blocks. He was really affecting things around the rim, making life hard for Eduardo Andre and Amani Hansberry and the players in the paint from West Virginia. I thought he played a great game tonight and did stuff that really doesn't show up on the stat sheet. Let's talk about West Virginia now. Let's look at trying to see if anybody for Arizona had double-digit rebounds. They did not. It was just good team rebounding. Their biggest rebounder had 7. That was Toby Awaka. And then Henry Vasir, too, had 7. For West Virginia, leading scorer on the night was Javon Small, 17 points, 5 assists, 6 rebounds, 6 of 17 shooting, 3 of 9 from 3, 2 of 2 from the free throw strike. Another pretty good night statistically for him. Has not been shooting the ball as well from 3 as you'd like, but, that's not his primary game. He's a scorer, but, doesn't always do it from 3. Sometimes he takes it off the bounce. One thing I noticed with Javon, especially in the first half, I thought he was pressing a little bit too much. He probably in his head, I don't want to speak for the young man, but he knows Tucker's out. He knows they're shorthanded. He knows Arizona's a good team. And I think he was just trying to do too much. I think he was trying to put the team on his back. And I think he was trying to make plays at times when he shouldn't have been trying to make plays, and he didn't let the game come to him. I know on at least 2 possessions there in the first half, and I think there were more of them, but the 2 that really stick out. The one was the last possession of the half. He had Toby O'Connie wide open in the corner, and he, instead of throwing him the ball for a last shot of the half, he tried to dribble the ball way too much and try to take it off the bounce and dribble between 2 guys, and it just didn't work. But listen, Javon Small is a player of the year candidate right now, so I'm not going to say a whole lot of negative things about that young man because he's playing his tail off. But I've got to try to be objective here, and he did, I think, try a little bit too much and press a little bit too much during the first half. But second half, I thought he settled in a little better, let the game come to him a little better. But it just wasn't, they had dug themselves such a hole and it just wasn't a good night. For whatever reason, they were stagnant tonight. I think that's the right word. No other player in double digits for them in points. Jonathan Powell had 8. Sincere Harris had 8. Toby O'Connie with 8. Amani Hansberry with 8. So a lot of 8s. Eduardo Andre with 5. Joseph Yesufu, who was, basically getting KJ Tenner's minutes tonight, only had 2. Rough night for him. He was only 1 for 7 from the floor. Committed 2 fouls and no other stats. There were a few times I saw Joe get beat on defense tonight. I know the young man, I'm sure he was playing really hard, but he was playing more minutes than he's accustomed to playing, and it just was not a good night for him. Jake Hour came off the bench there late and did some things. He had, says 2 rebounds. He actually had 3 rebounds, 2 offensive and 1 defensive that I know of. He was hustling, didn't get it. He only got 1 shot off, and he missed it. But it was in garbage time, Monty Hansberry was 3 of 6 shooting, 3 rebounds, a steal. I mentioned 8 points. Sincere Harris, how about Sincere making 2 threes tonight? He was 2 of 3 from 3. Had 3 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, 8 points. Jonathan Powell was 1 for 4 from 3. West Virginia was not making their 3-point shots tonight. Powell 1 for 4, 4 rebounds. The offense just wasn't flowing smooth tonight. There was a lot more standing around than normal, and maybe that was the reason Javon was doing what he was doing. Maybe the guys just weren't moving. They weren't running their sets as cleanly as they have in the past. They weren't doing as well on the screen and roll game. Now, some of the credit to that has to go to Arizona, the way they defended it. But West Virginia just wasn't crisp tonight. Again, I chalk it up to just not their night. It wasn't a good night. I don't know why. It happens. I've played sports, not at that level, but I have played sports, and there are some nights the basket looks smaller. There are some nights the game seems to be moving faster for you, and sometimes when that happens, it happens for the entire team all at once. And I think that's what happened tonight for the Mountaineers for whatever reason. So they will bounce back. I have no doubt about it. They have Colorado coming up this weekend. I think the game's on Sunday. I'm hoping to get a game preview video out to you guys, not making any promises. With basketball, with our 2 games a week, it's really hard for me to get previews out for every game. But I'm going to do my best. I do actually enjoy doing those. But they do have Colorado coming up. I'm also going to try to get someone from Colorado, hopefully, on the show to talk about the Buffs and what West Virginia can expect coming up this Sunday in their very first matchup against the Buffs. And by the way, very first matchup as far as Big 12 conference opponents. West Virginia has a really good historical record. I don't have it in front of me, but they historically do really well anytime they play a team at the Coliseum for the very first time. This was the very first time Arizona had ever been to the Coliseum, and they did a good job. Now, the crowd was not what you would expect because of the winter weather. The temperature here, as most of you know, if you live in West Virginia and even anywhere in the eastern part of the country, temperatures are well below freezing, in the 20s or teens. The roads are bad. People can't get out of their house. It affected attendance at the game. Did that affect the actual atmosphere? I don't know. Would it have made a difference? I don't know. But, it couldn't have helped. It definitely couldn't have helped. It could not have helped that the fact that fans could not be there could not have helped. Anyway, so that was the stats for the game. Another thing I noticed with defensively tonight, West Virginia, for whatever reason, they weren't doing a solid job like they have been of rotating on defense. They were, the help side defense wasn't doing good. I don't know if they were miscommunicating at times, if guys just were staying on their man too long. I don't know what was going on. I don't know if Arizona maybe just had a great game plan on how to play against West Virginia's ball screen defense. I don't know, but West Virginia was not doing a good job switching their man, rotating on ball screens tonight on defense. They left way too many guys open. They just, again, I mentioned earlier, they didn't play with the same amount of defensive intensity that they played with. They went through stretches where they did. And honestly, when they went through stretches of playing good defense is after they made a couple shots. They'd make a couple shots, and you'd see the defensive intensity pick up a little bit. And, as a basketball player, there's not much that helps more than seeing the ball go through the net. And when you do that, your confidence level just automatically rises, especially when you see your team hit a couple shots in a row, or you hit a couple shots in a row, it automatically lifts your confidence up. That West Virginia just didn't do that enough tonight. They went through, they had a couple decent runs where I know late it was like 48-43 at one time. They pulled it within 5, and then boom, Arizona comes right back down and scores again. But the defensive intensity just was not there that we're used to seeing. Hopefully it comes back against Colorado. As far as the season goes, I think you can just kind of say that this West Virginia team, they're kind of starting it from ground zero right now. I think you're starting from scratch. You won a game at Kansas that you probably shouldn't have won, right? And you turn around and you lose a game about a week later against Arizona at home that you probably should have won, or at least could have won, right? So you're 1-1 in those games. And then sandwiched in the middle, you've got Oklahoma State, who is that's a team you should have beaten. And you did. You held serve in that one. It was a game you should have won, and you won it. You've won a game that you shouldn't have won, probably, and you probably lost a game that you should have won. Now, but if you go back to early in the season, when I looked at the schedule and I saw Kansas, Oklahoma State, Arizona, I thought West Virginia would be sitting here at 1-2 right now, to be honest with you. So I still don't want to get too negative on this team. I wanted to come on here and be objective. Look at the things the team did well tonight, the things the team did not do well. didn't do a lot well, to be honest with you. But that being said, I wanted to try to be as objective as I can. It's not always sunshine and rainbows, and it's also not always bad. And I try to bring both sides of it. Hopefully I do a good job of that. But another thing I noticed, and not just tonight, but going back to the last game, and I didn't talk about it because it didn't really matter. For whatever reason, this team has struggled the last couple of games in throwing alley-oop passes and lob passes. They're really missing big time on alley-oop and lob passes, something that at that level of basketball typically has been looks pretty easy. I'm not saying it is easy because, again, I've not played at their level, but guys playing at their level, at their size and their athleticism, those should not be that difficult. And for whatever reason, the last couple of games, they cannot connect on these alley-oops and these lobs. They either throw them too high, throw them too hard, and they bounce off the backboard. They don't time it right. The guys that are coming up to jump don't time it right. I don't know what it is, but they're just missing on a lot of those. And I don't know if it has any impact on the game or not, but it's just something I've noticed and kind of chuckled at it at first, but not really chuckling about it now because, like I said, they lost the game. But I don't know if you guys have noticed that or not either. It hadn't been an issue until the last couple of games. All right, let's get to the chat and see what you guys had to say. We've got a super chat. We have Jake T in the house. Thank you, Jake T, for the $10 donation. He says, I'm afraid we're getting to a point in our schedule where we need to have Tucker back. Win some, lose some on the Colorado. Well said. Yeah, well said. I was afraid, or I am afraid, I don't want to say is, I am, that at some point, and I've even mentioned this in past shows, at some point, the lack of depth is going to come up and bite you. Because this is an absolute gauntlet of a schedule. And West Virginia's non-conference schedule is no joke. I mean, Gonzaga, Arizona, Louisville, Georgetown, even UMass, throw them in there. Some really good ball teams. Pitt, some really good teams that this West Virginia team has played this year. And some really tough competition. 3 overtime games. Not to mention Kansas and Oklahoma State and now Arizona again. Just really, really tough games. And it doesn't stop. There are no bye weeks in basketball. They they had a couple weeks off around finals time and other, holidays and things like that, but that was during the non-conference part of the schedule. Once conference play starts, man, they go 2 nights a week, boom, for 20 games. 2 nights a week for 10 weeks, basically. It might not be exactly that, but it's pretty darn close. And it's a gauntlet. And you need bodies, you need healthy guys, and this team is just beat up, unfortunately. Anyway, see what other comments we got. WV Fan 13 says the refs did not lose this game. You cannot have 4 or 5 minute scoring droughts and win. We need Tucker back or someone to step up and be consistent. Second score. Small can't do it all. Agreed. The officiating was rough in the first half. I didn't have a huge issue with it. There were some missed calls, but it wasn't a huge disparity. I mean, when you look, West Virginia actually shot 2 more free throws than Arizona did. It did not impact the game, in my opinion. Second half, I actually thought they called a pretty decent game. First half, there were some calls I didn't agree with, but I don't think it was bad enough to affect the game. Just my opinion. There was one time, Steven, I saw one of West Virginia's players get pushed in the back on a rebound. I mean, it was blatant, too. The guy shoved him right in the back, right in front of the referee, and they didn't call it. And I think that was in the first half or early second half. That was one time, and the one time that they called a foul on, I think it was Eduardo, when he didn't, or no, it was one of our guy was going up to shoot the ball, and he got hit on, it was Javon, I think, got hit on the hand, and they called it a clean, they didn't call a foul, they called a clean block. So there were definitely some calls, but I don't think the foul discrepancy, it wasn't a 20-point difference in the ball game, Tosh says Arizona was a better team on both ends of the court. Tonight was the first game this year our defense didn't show up. Yeah, they didn't, for whatever reason. Now, Arizona had a lot to do with that. Arizona plays fast. They like to get downhill, but, normally West Virginia, they tried to do that against West Virginia last time, and West Virginia did a better job of defending it. But now West Virginia had Tucker when they played Arizona the last time too. And if I recall, he had a great game against Arizona. Was that the game he hit 7 or 8 3-pointers? It may have been. So, and he also makes a difference on the defensive end of the court with his length, his ability to get out and cut off passing lanes. Tucker's a good defensive player too. So I'm sure they do miss him on both ends of the court. And I think tonight's one of those games where they needed him. But again, Young man's injured. You can't do anything about it. It is what it is. And I think, and again, something I haven't even mentioned yet that had to play a role here, the revenge factor. Arizona, they likely came into this game with revenge on their mind. They knew that West Virginia got the best of them in Bahamas. They knew they were a better team than what they showed, in several games this season, because Arizona started off a top 10 team. Now they're not ranked, but they're now on a 3-game winning streak. And they knew that the 3-game winning streak is more like the team they feel like they are. They wanted to come into Morgantown and prove something. And I'm sure they had revenge on their mind. That's one reason they were probably so laser focused and playing with so much energy. And, and I don't know how much West Virginia being ranked factored in. Is this team, is it harder for them to handle success? I don't know. I don't want to assume that, but it's as a West Virginia fan, sometimes it appears, and again, this is probably just recency bias, but sometimes it appears that when our teams have a number beside their name, they just don't perform as well. I don't know, but you've got to get that number beside your name if you ever want to, move up in the rankings and you want to get good seeds in March and all that. You've got to have that number. They'll figure it out. Ravens, so they've got to work on rebounding the ball. Absolutely. It's definitely a big deal. Daniel says it's still a tournament team. I totally agree. And I'm with you, Daniel. I thought NIT was probably a reasonable expectation, and they still have an extremely, extremely good chance of surpassing that. Tim Haynes in the house says poor Small cannot do it by himself. Agree. It looked like they had lead in their shoes tonight. Don't know why, but just really looked slow or flat. Defense was confused and shooting was off. Yep, all accurate comments. Other than upper body. Nope, that's all I have. That's all Coach is saying, Shaggy of West Virginia. I will say this. Even though it's not been officially announced, and this is, I guess you could say this is a rumor, but allegedly it's Tucker's shoulder. And I think I've even heard a few announcers mention it. It's allegedly his shoulder. The surgically repaired shoulder is, and I think Mike and Chris may have even talked about it on their show. I don't know. Anyway, his surgically repaired shoulder apparently is giving him some problems. So, and I think it might even be a shooting shoulder. So, that's not really something you want to mess around with, right? Especially someone who has aspirations of playing professional basketball. So, he's had 2 shoulder surgeries. I think he's had one on each shoulder. I'm not sure, but I know he's had 2 shoulder surgeries, and neither time he set out any extensive time. And, he did set out, he had the surgery done right after the season ended for Drake. When he showed up in Morgantown, if you remember, he had a sling on. But he took off a few weeks, started shooting again and practicing and doing whatever he needed to do. So he didn't take a long layoff. And apparently maybe he didn't get enough time to heal. I don't know. I'm not a doctor and I don't want to make assumptions, but allegedly it's a shoulder. And, I think it looks like they're leaning towards giving him the season off to let it heal. But we'll see if that's actually the case. Because to me, if you're going to bring him back, because remember, he can only play one more time, but between tonight and the Colorado game, he has one more game he can play before he loses out on a medical red shirt, on the option to file for a medical red shirt. And you would think tonight against Arizona is when you would want to do that, right? At home against a good team, you want to play your guy, but they didn't. So that tells me that more than likely he's not playing this year. But again, maybe he comes out Sunday night and he's dressed and plays. I don't know. Hope Hansberry isn't out again. I agree, Jack or Clark, whatever your name is. Jack's son, Clark. I agree. Javon had ice on his elbow after the game. Yeah, he took a big spill there. And I think once they saw the game was out of hand, they just realized that there's no reason in risking it. Give him a break. Get these other guys some playing time. Let me see what other comments we've got here. Remember, if you guys want to be sure to get your comment read, you can drop a super chat by hitting the $ near the chat box and then typing your comment, making a small donation, and it highlights your comment. I'll be sure to address it. And it's also an easy way you can support what I do here on the channel and help me keep the lights on. Brennan D. Baby says, does this change expectations, or do you agree with me? Just a bad game. I still believe we can maybe make it to Sweet 16. Yeah, I think it's just a bad game, Brennan. A lot of it may depend on the health of the team going forward. Is Javon's injury, is it just a bruise or is it something more serious? how long is KJ out? Because depth matters. There's a lot of things that play into this. But right now, tonight, based on what I know and what I don't know, I think it's just a bad night. I really do. Almost every team has a night like this, or two or three during a long 30-game season. So, you cannot come out every single night with your A game. I don't know anybody that can do that. Maybe the year the Golden State Warriors won 72 games, maybe, I don't know. But anyway. Didn't they lose an NBA Finals, though, that year? So I guess they don't have the red game every night either. Slow rotation on defense, Greg, absolutely. For full strength the first time we played them, Kenny. You're absolutely right. Eggs or ticks, shots didn't fall, and no effort on defensive side. I don't want to say no effort. The effort did seem lacking at times, but I think it was more or less just no energy. You know what I'm saying? It's like they had no energy and were flat for whatever reason. There are some nights, you just don't have it for whatever reason. And I think tonight was one of those nights. And then when you don't make shots on the other end, it makes it even worse because you don't get any confidence. You don't get your adrenaline going. You know what I mean? Making shots is a huge remedy. And the biggest medicine, the best medicine for basketball ailments is making shots. If you're playing bad on defense, whatever. If you make a few shots, man, all of a sudden the world's brighter. The birds are singing again. The flowers are blooming. Everything's good. When nothing you throw up's going in, sometimes it messes with your psyche. Now, the key is trying not to let that happen. But if you're already struggling a little bit and not having a lot of energy and things, it's just not your night. Plus, on the defensive end, plus you're missing your shots. It's just like it snowballs. If that makes sense. Patrick Board says, just a heads up, Couz UMass is not looking like a good win. They have lost most of their games since we played them. Well, thank you, Patrick. To be honest, I have not even looked at their schedule and their results. I know last I heard, Georgetown was playing pretty well. But again, I haven't checked their last couple of games either. But thank you for that heads up, Patrick. I just threw them out there because they're a pretty good historic program. I think a win over UMass is respectable. Typically, even though it's a team West Virginia should beat, they're a respectable program. So, but yeah, thank you for that. They did miss Tenor, Kenny. I think KJ Tenor comes in and he's able to run the offense, give Javon Small a breather, or anybody else for that matter. He can come in and run the offense and help Javon run the offense. He's I don't know, man. He just has a presence about him out there. He's smart. He has a high basketball IQ, which I talk about a lot with this team. He has poise. He just doesn't play like a freshman, and based on what I saw from, and I know it's just one game, but it looks like now we know why he was getting more floor time than Joseph Yesufu was. And that surprised me because I thought Joseph Yesufu would contribute more than he has as far as statistically. I'm not saying he hasn't done it. He's made some big shots in a couple games. I'm not saying he hasn't contributed at all. I don't want to sound like that at all. But as far as minutes and floor time and playing time, I think KJ Tenor I think now we know how much he's missed on this team. Now, I'm not saying I don't know how much it would have impacted the game. I don't think KJ Tenor, no offense to him, but I don't think his plus minus is 19 tonight. You know what I mean? For where it's going to make that big of a difference. But, if he comes in and makes one or two of his little floater shots, if he's able to dispel Javon a little earlier in the game, maybe something like that, maybe it's a little different, but I don't think him playing tonight would have been a total cure-all for this team. Let me see. Shaggy of WV says Georgetown hasn't lost since we beat them. They're only down by 3 to Marquette right now. Thank you, Shaggy. Appreciate that. Drumwolf 62 says number 1 Tennessee lost by 30 points tonight. That's Drumwolf. Thank you for posting that. That's a great example. Every team's going to have bad nights. It happens, especially in basketball. This scares me. Hansberry might have got hurt bad again. I hope not, Kenny, but we'll see. I really hope not. Finally get ranked and lose by 19 at home. Life of a West Virginia fan, Shaq. Says it was a disappointment. Yeah, it was, man, but like I said, I'm not going to let it get to me. It's one game out of what, 14? They've had 2 bad games basically out of 14. And this is, again, brand new roster, brand new coaching staff, down 3 players due to injury, including a starter and a 20-point scorer, 20-point score from last year, from his previous team, in Jaden Stone. Hansberry probably still not 100%. So I think you've got to look at the context around the team. But again, but they did show last week they could play when the deck were stacked against them. They showed the same thing against Kansas. Tonight they weren't able to get it done. And no excuses. I'm sure DeVries is going to tell you no excuses. He's not going to allow excuses. But just, as someone who's played sports in a long time ago, there are nights, man, nothing just goes right for you. And I think tonight was one of those nights. Should have played Jake more. Yeah, they could have, but I don't know why they don't. My only thinking there, Jacob, is, and I don't know this, but I'm just assuming, because as good as he shoots the ball, I'm going to assume that there are other areas of his game that he's just really bad at. I shouldn't say really bad, but that he's not as good, not good enough to get more minutes. Like maybe defense, maybe he's a detriment on that end of the court. I don't know. I don't see him at practice every day, but I'm going to assume that that's the case, because anybody that shoots, remember Johnny West when he was here under Huggins? He didn't play much. They only brought him in when they needed a big shot usually. Or they just needed him for depth or whatever. But I kind of compare him, and probably even less playing time than that. Johnny West got, at least a little bit of significant playing time. Jack Howard's getting very little playing time. Right now, somebody asked in the chat about Colorado. Yeah, Raven asked about Colorado. Right now, full disclosure, I have not watched them play yet, but they're 9-4 on the season, with wins over. Their last game was a 20-point loss on the road to Arizona State. Before that, they lost by 10 at home to Iowa State. They beat Bellarmine, South Dakota State, Colorado State, Pacific, Eastern Washington, Northern Colorado, Fullerton, Harvard. They haven't played much of a schedule. They lost to Michigan State by 16, beat UConn. Yeah, remember, they are the one of the teams who beat UConn in that preseason tournament or early season tournament. And they actually played Iowa State twice, because they also played them in a tournament, and they've lost to them both times by large margins. So, with the exception of Colorado, with the exception of UConn, every team that Colorado has played that's a Power 4 school or Power 5 school in basketball has beat them pretty soundly. So, or at least double digits, I should say. So, just looking at record alone, they don't look like that good of a team. But I haven't watched him play and can't really speak to matchups or anything like that. Again, I'm hoping to do a preview video in the next day or so and dig more into the numbers, and maybe even watch a little bit of their games if I have time. Again, not making any promises, because I do have to balance my job and everything else, as you guys know. So Curtis D316 says, if DeVries and Stone don't play again this season, it's going to be a maybe next year saying we hear every year. Yeah. Yeah, but I think we're past that with this team. I think they've proven now without those 2 guys they can win. But they need Hansberry to be healthy. They need everybody else to be healthy, right? They don't need Hansberry to be limping around and be hurt. And I didn't say that to be negative towards him. I just mean they need him healthy. They don't need Tenor hurt. They need everybody at full speed if they're going to be out those 2 guys. And it's hard to do that through this gauntlet of a schedule, right? That's why I think if one of those guys, especially if Jaden Stone's able to come back and play, I don't know though. As I talk about this and think through this in my head, he hasn't played a game all year. How hard is it going to be to get him in the rotation now and get him up to game speed? How long is that going to take? By the time you do that, you're probably late into the season. It doesn't hurt your team chemistry. There's a lot that goes. Remember last year's team, how they kept having guys shuffle in and out, and they never looked cohesive, or never looked like they had any chemistry. I don't want that team to have to go through this. Raven says, I hope the Iowa State doesn't wipe the floor with us. And Iowa State right now is a really, really good basketball team. And it's let me look and see where we win and where we play them. I'm gonna look at the schedule real quick. Let's see. All right, we're at home. We're at home. We go to Colorado, then go to Houston. Then we're back home on the 18th, on a Saturday, the 18th, to play Iowa State. So yeah, what, a week and a half from now, I guess. Almost 2 weeks. Almost 2 weeks from now, West Virginia has Iowa State in Morgantown. So that should be, they'll be up for that. Hopefully the weather will be better. People will be able to get out to the Coliseum and watch that game because it should be a fun atmosphere. I expect the team to be up for that one. I expect there'll be a ton of energy for that one. And I expect that to be a good basketball game. Whether West Virginia wins or not, and yes, it's at home, Raven, thankfully. Let me see if they play. There are a few teams they play twice. Iowa State is not one of them. They play Houston twice. No, I'm wrong. Sorry. No, they don't play Iowa State but one time, thankfully. And it's in Morgantown. I do remember seeing when I was looking at the schedule earlier in the year, I noticed that what I thought could be potentially the three of the four toughest opponents on the schedule, Arizona, Kansas, and Iowa State, they only play once each. Of course, that changed when they had to play Arizona in the Bahamas. But that doesn't count as a conference game, so it really doesn't count towards the conference schedule. But yeah, they play the teams they play twice are, for the most part, with exception of Houston, for the most part are the, I'll call the lower tier teams in the conference as far as basketball goes. I mean, Colorado, they play them twice. They play TCU twice, Cincinnati twice. Now Cincinnati's good. I shouldn't call them bottom. They're 10-3 right now. That's a good team. BYU twice, Utah twice, and I think UCF twice. Let me look. No, not UCF. But anyway, those are the teams they play twice. So yeah, with the exception of Cincinnati and Houston, those are not the upper echelon teams in the conference from a basketball standpoint. So, West Virginia should technically win most of those games. But again, a lot of it's going to depend on the health. A lot of it's going to depend on a lot of things. But I'm going to take this game tonight as just one of those nights that it just wasn't. Things just didn't go their way. It happens. It was just a bad night. I don't want to spend too much time worrying about it or stressing about it. It just is what it is at this point. Get a few more comments here. John says it's at Colorado. Correct. It is. Curtis D316 says, John, Raven was referring to the game against Iowa State being at home. Curtis D316 says Small and DeVries are the only two players that can create their own shot. I'm not sure about Stone because he hasn't played. Exactly. We don't know. And I haven't seen, I've seen highlights of the young man, obviously, but haven't seen him in Morgantown since he's been in Morgantown. Played BYU and Utah twice, at Colorado, then at Houston, then home for ISU. Jimmy McKenna in the house says, how was Tucker's health going to be by then? We didn't have him tonight. I was not surprised by the loss tonight. Got to get healthy, can get 5 out of 6 wins. Yeah, Tucker, it doesn't appear that he's coming back. Now, I'm speculating. It's alleged that it's his shoulder. There are rumors and speculation that he may take a medical red shirt this year and come back and finish his career next year. Now, if he does that, if this new rule passes where guys get 5 years of eligibility, he could technically play 2 more years. Wouldn't that be something? But anyway, that's another conversation for another day. All right. Every team goes through it, Brent. You're exactly right. Exactly right. Well, listen, I'm going to call it a night. I appreciate everybody jumping on the show. Again, if you're watching on X, please come over to my Hoops from the Hills YouTube channel. Subscribe over there. Also, I haven't even mentioned this. Please hit the thumbs up button on the video. Whether you're watching it live, whether you're watching it on the replay, the likes are huge. They really help us YouTube creators. It helps the algorithm. It shows YouTube that you're liking what you see, and they will push the video out to more people and give more people the opportunity to watch it. Curtis D, I do not want to hear that about another snowstorm. Don't talk that bad language in here, man. In all seriousness, I've had a stressful couple of days dealing with this. And not at my own house, but I've got family members that have been snowed in and no power, and it's just been a mess. So I don't need any more snow right now. I've had enough snow for the rest of the year, to be honest with you. Get it out of here. But anyway, thank you all for joining the show. Please subscribe again. Please if you're on Twitter, go to @hoops_heels304. Please follow me over there. I try to tweet out during games and other things during the week. I appreciate everybody's support. I appreciate you tuning into the show. Let's go Mountaineers. And I'm done. Yeah, Jimmy, I'm good, brother. Thank you. Everybody's good. Just a lot of, trees, power outages, things like that that some of my family members have had to deal with. But thanks for asking, brother. Take care. Good night.